Just a quiet woman at target practice until the SEAL commander saw her officially dead tattoo and nearly fainted. 27-year-old Emma Cross stood at lane 14 of Pine Ridge shooting range, methodically loading rounds into her Sig Sauer P320 with the kind of practiced efficiency that most recreational shooters never achieved. To the dozen other people at the indoor range that Saturday afternoon, she appeared to be exactly what she claimed to be, a quiet woman who enjoyed target shooting as a hobby. But Emma Cross was far from ordinary, and her presence at Pine Ridge shooting range was anything but recreational. For 4 years, Emma had been living a carefully constructed lie. Her real name was Lieutenant Commander Alexis Phoenix Kane, and officially, she had died in a classified naval operation in the South China Sea on March 15, 2020. Her death certificate had been filed, her memorial service held at Arlington National Cemetery, and her name added to the Wall of Honor alongside other fallen heroes who had given their lives in service to their country. But death, as it turned out, had been the perfect cover story for the Navy's most classified asset. Phoenix Kane had been one of the most lethal operators in the history of naval special warfare, a woman whose very existence challenged every assumption about gender roles in elite military units. She had been recruited directly from the Naval Academy for a black budget program so classified that it didn't officially exist, trained alongside Navy SEALs in operations that pushed the boundaries of international law and deployed on missions that would never appear in any official record. Her specialty had been deep penetration operations, infiltrating enemy organizations, gathering intelligence from sources that conventional assets could never reach, and eliminating high-value targets in situations where traditional military intervention was impossible. For 7 years, Phoenix had operated in the shadows, moving through hostile territories with an identity so fluid that even her handlers sometimes forgot who she really was. The tattoo on her left forearm told the story that she could never speak aloud. Inked in precise military font were the words, Lieutenant Commander A. Kane, KIA, March 15, 2020, officially dead. Below it, in smaller script, were the coordinates of her supposed death location and a single line that only someone with the highest security clearances would understand. Project Lazarus, Resurrection Protocol Authorized. Emma had gotten the tattoo 6 months after her official death during a moment of dark humor about her impossible situation. She was alive, healthy, and more dangerous than ever, but the world believed she was dead. The tattoo was her private joke about the absurdity of her existence, a permanent reminder that Phoenix Kane lived on even though she could never acknowledge her true identity to anyone. This afternoon's visit to Pine Ridge shooting range was part of Emma's monthly routine to maintain the skills that had made Phoenix legendary. She needed to stay sharp, not because she expected to return to active duty, but because old habits from 7 years of covert operations died hard. The muscle memory of precision shooting, tactical awareness, and constant vigilance were so deeply ingrained that abandoning them felt like losing essential parts of herself. Emma raised her pistol and aligned the sights on the target 50 yards downrange. Her breathing slowed to the controlled rhythm that had been drilled into her during countless hours of advanced marksmanship training. Her stance shifted into the precise position that maximized stability and accuracy while minimizing her profile as a target. These were not techniques that civilian shooting instructors taught. They were combat shooting fundamentals designed for situations where missing meant death. She squeezed the trigger with the smooth, consistent pressure that separated professional operators from recreational shooters. The round struck the target's center ring with mechanical precision. She fired again, placing the second bullet within millimeters of the first, then a third shot and a fourth, each one forming a tight cluster that demonstrated shooting skills far beyond anything a civilian hobbyist should possess. Emma was so focused on her shooting that she didn't notice the man who had moved to the lane beside her until he spoke. "That's some impressive marksmanship." Emma looked to her left and saw a man in his early 40s, athletic build, wearing civilian clothes, but carrying himself with the unmistakable bearing of military leadership. His short gray hair was regulation length despite his civilian attire, and his eyes held the sharp focus of someone accustomed to evaluating tactical situations. "Thank you," Emma replied politely, maintaining the friendly but reserved demeanor that Emma Cross had perfected. "I've been practicing for a while." "I can tell. That grouping pattern is exceptional. Mind if I ask where you learned to shoot like that?" Emma's situational awareness kicked into high alert. The question seemed casual enough, but something in the man's tone suggested more than idle curiosity. She had learned long ago that seemingly innocent conversations could be probing for information that might compromise her carefully constructed cover identity. "Local instructor mostly. Some online tutorials. YouTube is surprisingly helpful for improving technique." The man smiled, but Emma noticed that it didn't reach his eyes. He was studying her with the kind of professional assessment that she recognized from her own training. This wasn't casual conversation between fellow shooting enthusiasts. This was an evaluation. "I'm Marcus, by the way, Marcus Richardson." Emma Cross." Marcus extended his hand, and as Emma shook it, she noticed the firm grip and calloused palms that spoke of extensive firearms training and physical conditioning. More concerning was the way his eyes tracked her movements, noting details that most people would miss. "You know, Emma, I've been shooting for over 20 years, and I've rarely seen civilian marksmanship at your level. Your stance, your breathing control, your trigger discipline, that's military precision." Emma's mind raced through possible responses while maintaining her exterior calm. The cover story she had rehearsed hundreds of times came automatically to her lips. "My father was in the Army. He taught me to shoot when I was young, and I've always taken it seriously. I believe if you're going to own a firearm, you should know how to use it properly." "That's admirable. What unit was your father with?" The questions were becoming more direct, more pointed. Emma recognized the pattern of a professional interrogation disguised as friendly conversation. Whoever Marcus Richardson was, he wasn't just another weekend shooter. 82nd Airborne mostly. He did some tours in the Middle East, but he didn't talk about it much. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Airborne training would explain the precision. Those guys take marksmanship seriously. Emma decided to shift the conversation away from her background. "What about you? You seem to know quite a bit about shooting techniques yourself." "Navy, actually. 22 years, retired last year and moved to the area, still trying to figure out what civilians do with all their free time." The pieces clicked into place for Emma. Marcus Richardson wasn't just former Navy. His bearing, his assessment skills, and his pointed questions suggested special operations background, possibly naval special warfare, possibly someone who might have known Phoenix Kane. "What did you do in the Navy?" Emma asked, already suspecting the answer. "Special operations. Can't say much more than that, but let's just say I spent a lot of time in places that don't officially exist, doing things that never happened." Emma felt her blood turn cold. Marcus Richardson was almost certainly former Navy SEAL, which meant he was exactly the kind of person who might recognize advanced combat shooting techniques when he saw them. Her carefully maintained cover identity was potentially compromised by someone who had the knowledge and experience to see through it. "That sounds fascinating," Emma said, trying to maintain casual interest while her mind calculated exit strategies. "I imagine you have some incredible stories." "A few, most of them classified, of course. But speaking of incredible stories, I have to ask, that shooting pattern you just demonstrated isn't something you learn from YouTube videos. That's advanced tactical marksmanship, the kind of precision shooting that takes years of professional training to master." Emma realized that Marcus was no longer making casual conversation. He was conducting an interrogation, pushing for information that could expose her true identity. She needed to deflect his suspicions without appearing evasive or defensive. "I appreciate the compliment, but I think you might be overestimating my abilities. I just practice a lot and try to be consistent." Marcus stepped closer, and Emma noticed that he had positioned himself to block her easiest exit route from the shooting lane. His friendly demeanor hadn't changed, but his tactical positioning suggested that he considered her a potential threat. "Emma, I've trained with some of the best shooters in the world. I've worked alongside snipers who could put rounds through the same hole at 1,000 yards. What I just watched you do isn't amateur-level precision, it's professional-grade marksmanship that requires the kind of training that civilians don't have access to." Emma set her pistol down on the shooting bench and turned to face Marcus directly. She needed to end this conversation before it progressed to questions she couldn't answer without blowing her cover. "Marcus, I appreciate your interest, but I think you're reading too much into some good shots. I'm just here to practice and enjoy my hobby." "I'm sure you are. But here's the thing that's bothering me. Your shooting technique isn't just good, it's tactically perfect. Your stance is designed for combat situations, not target shooting. Your grip, your sight alignment, your trigger control, that's military-grade precision shooting." Emma realized that Marcus wasn't going to let this go. His suspicions were aroused, and he had enough experience to recognize that her shooting skills were far beyond anything a civilian should possess. She needed to extract herself from this situation before he started asking questions that could expose Project Lazarus and her true identity. "I'm flattered by your assessment, but I really should be heading home. It was nice meeting you, Marcus." Emma began packing her equipment, moving with efficient motions that were unfortunately another indicator of her military background. As she secured her pistol in its case, Marcus moved closer. "Emma, one more thing. Would you mind if I took a look at your shooting target? I'm curious about the precision of your grouping pattern." Before Emma could object, Marcus had stepped around her to examine the target at the end of her lane. The bullet holes formed a cluster so tight that they could be covered by a quarter, demonstrating accuracy that was statistically impossible for recreational shooters. "Jesus Christ," Marcus whispered, studying the target. "This is professional-level precision. I've seen Navy SEAL snipers who couldn't shoot groupings this tight under controlled conditions." Emma finished packing her gear and prepared to leave. But as she turned to go, Marcus's attention shifted from the target to her left forearm. The black t-shirt she was wearing had short sleeves, and the movement of packing her equipment had caused the fabric to shift, partially revealing the tattoo that she usually kept carefully concealed. Marcus's eyes locked onto the visible text, and Emma watched his expression change from professional curiosity to complete shock. She could see him reading the words that were partially visible. "Lieutenant Commander A. Kane, KIA, March 15, 2020. The color drained from Marcus's face as the implications of what he was seeing hit him. Emma realized that her carefully maintained cover was about to be completely blown by a tattoo that she had gotten as a private joke about her impossible situation. "What the hell?" Marcus breathed, his voice barely audible. Emma instinctively pulled her sleeve down to cover the tattoo, but it was too late. Marcus had seen enough to know that the woman standing in front of him was carrying ink that suggested she was someone who officially didn't exist. "Marcus, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Show me your arm," Marcus said, his voice carrying the tone of absolute command that Emma recognized from her own military service. "Show me that tattoo." Emma weighed her options rapidly. She could try to bluff her way out of the situation, claim that the tattoo was some kind of memorial for a relative or friend. She could attempt to leave immediately and hope that Marcus didn't pursue the matter. Or she could trust that a fellow special operations veteran would understand the complexities of classified programs and compartmentalized identities. "Marcus, I need you to understand that whatever you think you saw, there are national security implications that go far beyond a conversation at a shooting range. Lady, I've been involved in classified operations for over 2 decades. I understand national security implications better than most people. What I don't understand is how a civilian target shooter is carrying a tattoo that appears to reference a military officer who died in action." Emma made a decision that violated every security protocol she had been taught, but her instincts told her that Marcus Richardson was someone who could be trusted with classified information. She pulled up her left sleeve, fully revealing the tattoo that told the story of her impossible existence. Marcus stared at the ink with an expression of complete disbelief, reading the text that confirmed his suspicions and raised a dozen new questions. Lieutenant Commander A. Kane, KIA, March 15, 2020. Officially dead, Marcus read aloud, his voice filled with amazement. Project Lazarus, Resurrection Protocol Authorized. Marcus looked up from the tattoo to Emma's face, studying her features with the intensity of someone trying to reconcile impossible information. Phoenix Kane, he whispered. You're Phoenix Kane. Emma felt her world shift fundamentally. Marcus Richardson not only recognized the name Phoenix Kane, but he knew enough about her to make the connection between the tattoo and her true identity. This meant that he had been involved in operations at a level that would have given him access to information about the Navy's most classified programs. I don't know what you're talking about, Emma said automatically, falling back on the denial that had become her default response to any questions about her past. Bullshit, Marcus said bluntly. Phoenix Kane was a legend in naval special warfare, the most effective deep penetration operative the Navy ever produced. Officially, she died in a helicopter crash in the South China Sea 4 years ago. Unofficially, there were always rumors that her death was a cover story for an even more classified assignment. Emma realized that there was no point in continuing to deny what Marcus had already figured out. His knowledge of Phoenix Kane's reputation and the circumstances of her supposed death meant that he had been involved in special operations at the highest levels. Who are you, Marcus? And how do you know about Phoenix Kane? Marcus smiled for the first time since he had seen the tattoo, and Emma could see genuine admiration in his expression. Commander Marcus Richardson, SEAL Team 6, retired. I was operations coordinator for several missions where Phoenix Kane provided intelligence support. I never met her personally, but her work saved my team's lives on at least 3 occasions. Emma felt a surge of recognition. Marcus Richardson's name had appeared in several mission briefings during her time as Phoenix, although they had never worked directly together. He had been one of the most respected SEAL commanders in naval special warfare, known for his tactical brilliance and his ability to bring his teams home alive from impossible situations. Commander Richardson, Emma said, using his military rank as a sign of respect. I remember your name from briefings. Your reputation preceded you. The feeling is mutual, Lieutenant Commander, although I have to ask, what the hell are you doing shooting targets at a civilian range when you're supposed to be dead? Emma looked around the shooting range, suddenly aware that they were having a conversation about classified military operations in a public place where anyone could overhear them. This isn't the place for this conversation. Marcus nodded in agreement. My truck is in the parking lot. We can talk privately. As they walked toward the exit, Emma's mind raced through the implications of her blown cover. Marcus Richardson was former SEAL Team 6, which meant he had the highest security clearances and access to information about the most classified military programs. But his retirement status meant that his clearances had likely been downgraded, and his knowledge of current operations would be limited. More importantly, Marcus had recognized Phoenix Kane by reputation and had connected her to operations that had saved SEAL lives. This suggested that he viewed her as an asset rather than a threat, which gave Emma some confidence that he wouldn't immediately report her existence to current military authorities. They reached Marcus's pickup truck in the parking lot, and he gestured for Emma to take a seat in the passenger side while he sat behind the wheel. The vehicle's interior was clean and organized with the precision that Emma recognized from her own military habits. So, Marcus said once they were seated privately, Phoenix Kane is alive, living under the identity Emma Cross, and spending her weekends at civilian shooting ranges. I'm guessing there's a story behind this situation. Emma studied Marcus's face, looking for any sign of deception or hostile intent. Her training in reading people told her that he was genuinely curious rather than threatening, but she remained cautious about how much information to reveal. How much do you know about Project Lazarus? Rumors, mostly. Black budget program, compartmentalized beyond normal classification levels. Something about creating assets that could operate without official acknowledgement or government backing. Emma nodded. Project Lazarus was designed to develop operators who could function independently, without official support, in situations where the United States government needed complete deniability. The program required operators who were officially dead, allowing them to operate without any connection to American military or intelligence agencies. And Phoenix Kane was recruited for this program. Phoenix Kane was the program. I was the proof of concept, the test case, to determine whether it was possible to create an operator who could function effectively while officially deceased. Marcus whistled softly. That's either brilliant or completely insane. Probably both. For 4 years, I've been living as Emma Cross, maintaining my skills and staying ready for activation if needed. But mostly, I've been trying to figure out what it means to be alive when the world thinks you're dead. Hence the tattoo, Emma smiled ruefully. Dark humor. It seemed funny at the time, getting a tattoo that commemorated my own death. Now I'm thinking it might not have been the smartest decision. Marcus laughed, and Emma was surprised to find that she enjoyed the sound. It had been years since she had been able to have an honest conversation with someone who understood her background and the complexities of her situation. So what happens now? Marcus asked. I know about your true identity. You know that I know. And we're both former special operations with enough classified knowledge to cause serious problems for each other. Emma considered the question carefully. Marcus Richardson represented the first person in 4 years who knew her true identity and had the background to understand what that meant. She could report the security breach to her handlers, which would likely result in Marcus being detained and questioned. She could disappear and assume a new identity, abandoning the Emma Cross persona that had become comfortable over 4 years. Or she could trust that a fellow warrior would respect the complexities of her situation and keep her secret. What do you think should happen? Emma asked. I think Phoenix Kane has been operating alone for too long. I think the most effective operator in naval special warfare history deserves to have at least one person who knows who she really is and what she's accomplished. Emma felt something that she hadn't experienced in 4 years, the relief of being truly known by someone who understood the costs and sacrifices of special operations service. Commander Richardson. Marcus, we're both retired, technically speaking. Marcus, if you're willing to keep this between us, I'd appreciate having someone to talk to who understands the world I came from. Marcus extended his hand. Phoenix Kane, it's an honor to finally meet you. Officially, this conversation never happened. Unofficially, you've got a friend who knows exactly what it means to serve in the shadows. As they shook hands, Emma realized that her carefully constructed isolation had just ended. For the first time in 4 years, she wasn't completely alone with the secret of her impossible existence. The quiet woman at target practice had just found someone who understood that being officially dead didn't mean the mission was over. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this one.